team.
Hey David, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Ice, how about
Fab-
yourself?
Fabulous. Thank you for asking. All right. And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to AMA number 18. My name is Isaac, but if you've hung out in the Discord, you'll know me as Ice. I'm really lucky to be part of the comms team here at ASM. A few quick facts about me. I love this project. I love this community. And I absolutely love when David drops alpha and AMAs. No pressure, of course. David, you with us?
Cheeky. That's cheeky.
How you doing
Love
this
it.
morning?
Yeah, pretty good actually. It was an early one for me, but Carmen gets back today, so from her trip she's just been at New York, NFT New York, and a few other events like Consensus. So she's been away for about 3 weeks. So she's driving to the house now, which is awesome.
Oh man, that's amazing. You'll be pumped to see her.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, pretty happy.
That's good to hear. We're also joined by our head of strategy, who is amazing, by the way. Erin, how's it going?
Oh, thank you. Good, good, good. Very excited. Very excited about this particular topic. I think that you're going to be quite happy if one of your favorite things is David dropping alpha, because I think we've got some pretty exciting alpha leakages coming today.
I love
It-
to hear it.
Can everybody hear me okay? I've seen a comment that my internet wasn't great.
That's perfect on my end.
Oh, just joking. Okay, all right. Okay, Metablocks is trolling me.
All right, let's jump in. I thought before we opened it to the floor, a great place to start would be with a general overview of ASTO-Energy. How's it going to work, upcoming use cases, anything like that?
Yeah, so the ASTO-Energy is. I'll sort of explain what it is for those who might not be familiar. It's not a new token. It's simply us doing the math for you for ASTO over time, staked. So you accumulate what we're calling ASTO-Energy for participating in the genome mining and ASTO staking process, and that calculation gets updated regularly based on how much ASTO you've got staked and how long you leave it in there. Now, the reason why we built this mechanic is to enable you guys to supply assets to the market for adoption into use cases. As you know, 10,000 brains is definitely not enough, and we need facilities to be able to provide more brains for use cases coming up. Some of those use cases you guys are already aware of, like AFA. We definitely expect there to be more than 10,000 players of that game. And things like Muhammad Ali Next Legends, definitely going to need a lot of supply to the market for that. But we also have our upcoming collaborations. Some have been announced, like Crypto Walkers. Others, I don't know when the schedule for the next outside ecosystem collab to be announced, but that's coming out soon. Plus, we've had recent deals signed around things that have a lot of fans and are going to require a lot of mass market adoption, assets for mass market adoption for those use cases. So I've sort of conservatively estimated in the sort of medium term that we're going to need at least a million brains to the market to service the upcoming pipeline. And the way to do that is through ASTO-Energy. Now, how to accumulate ASTO-Energy, if you're not familiar, jump on the core text and you can stake your ASTO that you might have. And you'll start generating ASTO-Energy. But if you have tokens in the LBA already, that you don't need to do anything. You'll already be receiving ASTO-Energy for those tokens. And they also get a boost to the ASTO-Energy you receive because you're a liquidity provider to the protocol. That boost is 10%, and there is a streak multiplier on the back of that as well. With the LBA liquidity tokens, you have to keep them in there for the full production cycle to receive that ASTO-Energy. If you take them out before the production cycle ends, then the ASTO-Energy won't remain. And the third way is through ongoing LP tokens. So if you wanted to take advantage of that LP token boost, you can continue to provide new liquidity to the Uniswap pool, the USDC Uniswap pool. So did I miss anything in that intro, Erin and Ice?
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good overview in what ASTO-Energy is going to be, and how in demand basically we are expecting ASTO-Energy to be. So, David kind of subtly threw in some pretty major alpha there, that a partnership has been signed that'll be announced soon. And in combination with everything that is signed, that has been announced, and this one, that we will need over 1 million brains conservatively in the short to medium term. And those, as you all know, the brains are not something that are... the brains are controlled in terms of the supply. That's something that's controlled by the DAO. And so as holders of ASTO, you have the option to stake it to earn ASTO-Energy. And ASTO-Energy is going to be the way that these million plus brains are created. And so we're going to have some ways, David, I'm not sure how much detail we can go into about the mechanisms for how we're for exercising the ASTO-Energy, and at a larger scale. But it is something that we are expecting to be a extremely significant demand starting fairly soon. So, and the holders of ASTO-Energy will benefit from this demand.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so as you know, we're releasing the genome mining mechanics, and that will be a way for our community who are power users to interact with the protocol mechanics of supplying new assets to the market. And there will be ways to interact with that mechanic that that you can sort of tweak and play around with and discover in order to optimize the type of brains that you're receiving, and the aesthetics of those brains that you're receiving. And that's once the details are released on about that, the gamification of that process is going to be really interesting to see the feedback. We also realize that for some of these use cases, we're going to have to very quickly supply lots of assets to the market for mass market adoption, because the intention with these use cases is to onboard non-crypto native people, create on-ramps that are highly accessible, and we need to be able to supply assets for those use cases very quickly. So there will be additional mechanics released for those kinds of scenarios where you're still providing the supply of those assets to the market through ASTO-Energy, but we might be able to make the transaction more efficient for non-crypto native people.
That sounds really promising. Thanks for the clarification, you two. Now let's open things up to the floor. If anyone wants to request to speak, I'll invite you up here.
While we're doing that, if you're feeling like you might be in a particularly alpha dropping mood, it sounds like brains, there's going to be a pretty significant demand for them in the short term. But that's not the only thing that we might expect ASTO-Energy to be able to be used for as we start seeing adoption of these events, starting with AFA, maybe.
Sounds like you want to drop some alpha, Erin. I can take this one. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we expect things like AFA to create a popular following, and we're going to need more than 10,000 brains for that alone. But if you're watching closely, you'll notice that we're probably going to need more than 40,000 all-stars as well. So all-star splicing is going to be fueled by ASTO-Energy as well, and we're going to need to supply as many all-stars to the market as we are brains for the all-star use cases, and AFA is not the only use case for all-stars as well.
Love to hear it. All right, we're inviting our first person on, PJ Glitch.
PJ!
What's up, bro? You're on mute, I think.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, there he is. How's it going, PJ?
Isaac, is that who ICE is?
Yes, that's the one.
Hi,
Yes,
Isaac
me.
and Erin, and obviously David, our leader. I stayed up late for this one because I thought I got a sense this might be quite worth this last minute midweek alpha call. I obviously amazing what you've been doing. I missed the last couple of AMAs because they were too late for me, but the listen back through a bootleg copy that someone in the community managed to get to me, and just wanted to reiterate how good it was, especially around some of the announcements that from Futureverse and the first announcement from Futureverse, and how calm and reassuring it was to go into the ASM settled world chat and to see such reasoned, sensible discussion about it, and obviously some guidance from you, David, about how it was actually going to work, because I was I think with a lot of people, was a bit freaked out by the conversation in the fluff chat. So I just wanted to obviously just touch on how grateful we are for your continued input into these chat rooms, because I know obviously how busy you are. The games. So in the last week or so, you've talked about having, I can't remember what code acronyms used for them, but the collab games, the secret games, this new lots of fans games, and also we know about Burn Down, AFA, and about the next Legends. I just wondered which of those are classed in which categories, because I'm starting to lose track of how many games there are that have been hinted at and which ones. So we know the collabs are Crypto Walkers and I guess Burn Down, although you mentioned about collab that hasn't been discussed yet, and a new one that hasn't been discussed, and then 2 secret games. So am I double counting some of those?
Yeah, so maybe it might help if I sort of explain the different levels of interaction with the protocol we've sort of planned for. So we've had this rollout plan from the beginning, is to initially create first party experiences like AFA, so dog fooding the platform protocol that we're creating, and produce a number of use cases as first party. So that's in-house with our full in-house with our own game team and our own design team and our own platform team. And then the next level is to do more involved partnerships around use cases. And a good example of that is the Next Legends. So that's a partnership between us and Non-Fungible Labs, who are obviously a very friendly third party, kind of. Although that's, I won't say any more about that. But so the progression was, and those are a little bit more involved, but they're not. All the work doesn't need to be done by us. And then there's the third level of, which is completely third party use cases where we are just providing help with the open source platform tools and protocol to third party providers who are developing their own experiences, and the use cases will fall into sort of one of those three categories. The main ones at the moment are going to be obviously the first party stuff and the tighter collaborations, where we're quite heavily involved as the platform tools get refined and released. But over time, our involvement in those use cases is third-party use cases is going to decrease.
So when you were talking about the All-Stars and their need for more outside of AFA, as well as obviously hopefully with the demand for AFA, is that a game generated by you, or potentially a game generated either by the tighter or the external parties?
So the other game on the roadmap for All Stars, actually we're looking to release that in sort of two phases, and I'm probably revealing way too much information here.
Oh,
so
no.
Sorry, Erin. Two phases where we've had an internal prototype for testing purposes that we think that you guys might want to play around with. But also that concept might make for a really interesting full game as well. So we've been talking with a third party who will essentially develop that out into a full game on their own, in partnership with Altered State Machine.
And so, do you see that as so? That sounds like a fourth path where something starts potentially in-house as a demonstration of how fun or how good a game could be, and then that's then pitched or taken on by one of the partners that you're talking to, and they'll say, "Can we build that out?" Like a game studio or something might say, "Can we build that out as a more evolved version of what you've demonstrated to us?" Is that yet another opportunity?
Yeah, and I might expect to see a couple of these sorts of things. If you notice, game engines and sort of other platform organizations do a little bit of this sort of stuff, where they'll build little demos of stuff to show functionality, and then people take those ideas and run with them and build around them. I expect that we'll see more of that kind of stuff.
Cool. And then, so you talked about, with the splicing, are you expecting, I'm sure you're still working on this, are you expecting that you'll be able to do quite creative splices if you've got kind of some rarer characters that might get together, at a party or whatever, and then you end up with a kind of a boss prime combo and things like that? Is that something, or superheroines are known to be to like their parties? Is that something that could create kind of quite unique characters?
Yeah. I think if you look at how the customization level of All Stars and how many variations that we have, we certainly have a huge pool of variability that we can draw from those using those mechanics. I think as we, I can't remember the number. We used to quote it like really in the early days how many billion combinations. Yeah, it was some ridiculous number. So there's no sort of risk of running out of combinations of All Stars, and people can play around with those combinations with the splicing mechanic.
That sounds good. And then, sorry, I know I've taken up a lot of time already, but just because I'm making up for lost time, when Erin very nicely said short to medium term, we might need 1 million plus brains. Are we expecting that there'll be a little bit of the floodgates open and then we'll get lots of announcements, or is it a case of like, right, we're trying to work to a roadmap where we wait a little bit of time, we allow people to kind of gain their rewards, gain their ASTO-Energy, so we can kind of release something else? And then tagged on to that, are we expecting that, obviously we were fortunate with the Atom release that we had stored up rewards in ASTO that we could use. Some people might have actually traded those in and bought more brains, for example. So is the ASTO-Energy something that can be used potentially to purchase, if we're whitelisted for things to purchase, or will that need to be the currency? And will that currency, the end game for all of these things, will that all be ASTO like we've talked about before? Or is that could that be in it a particular game producer's own currency? Sorry, there's about 9 questions there. I do apologize.
That's all right. Depends on what it is. So things like intelligence mining will consume ASTO directly. Some in-game mechanics will consume ASTO, whilst others will consume ASTO-Energy. And generating these assets will consume ASTO-Energy. And we'll make sure to give you guys plenty of notice of upcoming floods, so that you can prepare your ASTO-Energy as we are now. Sort of giving you a little bit of advance warning once those contracts allow us to start talking about the specifics of those use cases publicly. Then we'll release that information as soon as possible. But we'll continue to give you guys as much forewarning as possible of upcoming events.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And obviously, and I haven't heard from Erin and Isaac, but it'd be good to hear a bit more about kind of what they're doing in the at the moment and what they're excited about. Because obviously, I know there's new roles or events, different roles for both of those. So, but thank you so much, and hopefully, Coleman's had a nice time in New York, and we are about to stop planning our end of year trip. So hopefully, that's still happening. Awesome. Or if not, we'll be knocking on your door if we can find you.
I'm actually really excited for that. I can't wait.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome, PJ.
Thanks, PJ.
Thanks for staying, mate.
David, I do know about a particular use of these things that holders like PJ might be particularly interested in. Is there something that we can talk about there for certain community members? Certain customizations and upgrades that they'll be able to use?
Man, you're just itching to share some alpha today, aren't you, Erin?
I'm just in that
for it, Erin.
I mean, Isaac said go for it, so I can't really override that, can I?
I don't think so. But one of the things you can tell I am extremely excited about, even though I do not own an arena, is I'm very excited that one of the things that you'll be able to do through these mechanisms that we've been talking to and alluding to is customization and upgrades for stadiums. And so if you want to add billboards to the stadium and you want to change out the number of billboards or upgrade the billboards or add cameras or some of these types of things, these are some of the things that arena owners will be able to do, which I am extremely excited about as I am excited to see how stadium owners, arena owners rather, are going to customize and make use of these arenas, not just for AFA, but particularly beyond.
Well, that's awesome. That's super exciting. Thanks for that, Erin. And yeah, don't hold back if you have any alpha on the tip of your tongue. Just all you got to do is open the door and let it in. All right. Welcome to the stage, Kona Road.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. Really, just a quick question here. Obviously, there's a pretty big transition from what we're seeing in the few tens of thousands of brains per cycle to, hundreds of thousands per cycle. And I'm curious what flexibility you'll have to change that in that, it's a long cycle with the, energy generation and then 2 months for mining. I assume at some point, even your estimates here, you may, in the middle of a cycle, you may not up the number of brains, but even like 2 cycles out for mining, you may have stated a number. But I assume as things evolve, those numbers may shift up or down, or like how do you, it doesn't, the long cycles don't give you a lot of tools to manage demand for, or supply of Gen 2 for whatever demand you see. I'm kind of curious how you're approaching that strategy of, as we initially scale.
Yeah, so we can actually deploy different cycle mechanics. Well, the DAO can to the protocol. And for some use cases, you can imagine there might be one where somebody comes and says, I need 100,000 brains tomorrow for this game. We obviously can't use the current cycle mechanic to provide that. So would have to propose a different one to the DAO. And you guys get to vote on how that mechanic goes. So we're not locked into this cycle method. We designed this for AFA to coincide with the release of the technology in the games. But that's certainly something that's flexible and controllable by the community through the DAO.
That sounds like a lovely thing to argue over, depending on who staked for what. Did you use energy for All-Stars because you thought a certain number was coming, etc.? But okay, so at least there is some mechanism. It's just TBD, depending on the opportunity.
Yeah. I think you have to be flexible about these things. If we make it too rigid, then we can't account for, potentially really good things to the protocol. And good use cases coming along that might have different demands from other ones. So we need to keep it flexible, but we need to keep it transparent and community governed.
Might the cycles be shorter in the future? Like 2 months seems kind of arbitrary. Like it sort of buys time doing stuff now for AFA launch, but there's no reason it has to be 2 months, is there?
No, there's not. I agree 100%. And we already talked about this with the team. And we're just going through feasibility on making the current cycles shorter as well, which we'll get back to you on.
Great, that was it for me. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kona. And welcome to the stage, BTC Hornet. How you doing, mate?
Hi, hello. Feel like I should direct my questions to Erin since I went alpha. So, but I'll throw it out there for anyone to answer. I was re-listening to last AMA, and there was a discussion about superheroines in arenas. So I was confused, David or Erin. You're going to need a lot of arenas. You'll need more than 50 or 60, right? If you're having 1 million brains, that's 250,000 game playing teams.
Mm-hmm.
If that's for AFA. But even at 40K, if you're going higher than 40, you're going to need a lot of arenas. Are superheroine holders going to get an arena?
That is so. Yes, there is a superhero a heroine arena. It's unlikely that it'll be the same mechanic as bosses, and it's likely that it won't be the only family arena. The mechanic around that is a little bit more complicated than the one-to-one mechanic of bosses. So it's taking some time to design and decide on. But the short answer is yes, we're going to need a lot more arenas than just 60 as the game grows in popularity, and a lot more different ways of obtaining arenas than just airdrops.
And so some subset of superheroines could get an airdrop.
I'm gonna tell you what my thinking on this is, but it's not set in stone yet. So treat the information responsibly. The ownership of arenas for superheroines, one of the mechanics I'm considering is a group ownership, and group rewards around managing those arenas for families like superheroines.
Okay, that's useful. And so, for at a superheroine arena, is it only superheroines that can play in the arena, or can anyone play in that arena?
So the idea around arenas is that they're managed by the arena owners, and you can set up leagues and tournaments with specific requirements. So if you wanted to set up a plunger versus bomber tournament, you can do that, and those controls are up to the users.
Okay.
Owners.
All right. All-star splicing. Does an all-star need a brain to splice?
No.
Okay. When do you have any more information on ASTO reverse claim for characters?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the development on that has been done already. Actually, a large chunk of it before we finished the genome mining stuff. So that's coming. We've got to make sure we time that correctly with the supply of ASTO to the market, and definitely needs to be done before the first use case is out for intelligence mining.
Okay, so you've got Rarity Sniffer rankings now. Did you work with Rarity Sniffer on developing the ranking system?
Yeah, I believe Dan was responsible for that one, and he worked with the team as well as our data analyst on our side.
Okay. So I noticed that there's a lot of ties. So like I've got a superheroine that's ranked like 214, but it's tied with 5 other superheroines. A lot of the numbers have like 10 are ranked a certain number. Any insight on that?
Yeah, my kind of philosophy on rarity rankings is yes, they're important, but I think what is more important is personal aesthetic, because this is representing you. So we haven't gone super hardcore into rarity rankings because the utility for these assets goes well beyond PFP and JPEG territory, where the only utility is rarity.
Okay.
So we didn't want to put too much emphasis on that because they don't exist just to be traded.
Okay. But you do have emphasis on rarity for the reverse claim characters.
Yeah, so we've got some rarity calculations around reverse claim. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that rarity is one component that's feeding into the All-Star claim, and there are others that you need look no further than to our community to get some insight on.
Very cryptic.
Okay, yeah, and then lastly, when you talk about 1 million brains, I'm assuming that's an agreement you have with an entity that expects
So that one,
one.
yeah. So that one's a conservative effort on our side, based on
So
how
that's
popular
kind of my
we think so.
question.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly my question. I mean, all of these estimates is based on adoption and whether people like the game. We haven't seen any of the games. I expect they're going to be great, but in terms of level of adoption, it's a guesstimate, right? You don't know. So you've got a number of 1 million. You think it's going to be fairly popular. It would seem you would need some degree of marketing to get that adoption, that widespread adoption. You're going to be bringing in people that today have no idea what AFA is. You're bringing in tens of thousands of people that don't know who you are right now. How do you capture those people?
Yeah, so this is really important for this entire space to nail, and it's one of the core parts of Futureverse, is to enable mass market adoption, to remove the barriers to entry for the majority of people. All the people on this call today, and everyone that hangs out on our Discord and follows our Twitter, I would consider power users. You're the people who understand the space, understand the protocols and the platforms, and the value of these of the mechanics behind all of this sort of stuff. But we can't expect the hundreds of millions of people who will be using these things to be that involved to the level that you guys are. So we have to abstract these tools in a way that people don't care or don't even necessarily know about the underlying technology. Most people don't check if the websites they're visiting are HTTPS, even though that's an important piece of technology that a lot of people might know how it works and why it's there. The website experience when you go onto Amazon or Facebook or whatever you might be going on to is not affected by the fact that that technology exists. And we have to start looking at things that way for Web3 technologies. It might be that people stop using the word NFT unless you're a power user. It might just be the experience you get from interacting with that technology is you have an interruptible, self-sovereign, natively tradable and transferable asset that has an immutable record. And that gives you some functionality that you can take your AFA asset that plays this game and go and play another game and receive a consistent experience. Invest in that, the training of the asset, have fun with that game, and then decide that you want to sell it and receive the benefit from doing so. And that's the kind of experience that the mass market needs to interact with. They don't need to know about how NFTs work and how gas works and how blockchains work. They just need to come in and use do the thing that's fun for them, and not worry about how the technology works behind.
So, I swear this is my last question, but one of the things that concerns me about Fluff World is the other Erin, your brother Erin, is not targeting children, or I should say children, people below the age of 16, 12, 13, 14. He's not targeting that audience in his business model. That concerns me because that's an enormous demographic that uses gaming technology today, and that will be using it for the next 30 years. 40 years, 50 years. But that's not the target for Fluff World, and there's a good reason for that. But that's just not their target audience. And that's limiting that's limiting for mass adoption. That limits your scope of who you can bring in. Is that your same model? I mean, will you? I mean, my 12-year-old, or I'm sorry, my 10-year-old boy play 12 hours of Roblox a day, we limit it to 2.
Mhm.
But if you target him, you're going to pull him in and take him away from Roblox, where he should be. I mean,
Yeah.
he should be with you.
And that's absolutely deliberate at this stage, because the level of interaction with the protocol, as I was saying earlier, all you guys who interact with us are power users and are well researched and able to read, white papers at various levels. But it's something that you're willing to invest in. You're probably not going to get that from the average 12-year-old. But if you sort of lead into what I was saying earlier, that abstraction level for mass market adoption, where you're no longer talking about the technology. 12-year-olds are not going to run around talking about blockchain technology and consensus algorithms and decentralized storage. They're going to say, I got this really cool thing for my little guy who autonomously does this really awesome task. That's the thing they're interested in, and that's the target for the use cases that come out of the protocol that we're building. And the stuff that you guys are interacting with is at the power user level. On the other side, that on the content side, it's really important that that you target an audience with your content. So Fluff World is definitely angled towards a more mature audience, and there is a more than significant enough audience for that that content layer. But we have other content layers and stuff within the ecosystem and coming up that you might not want to mix those two communities. So we have ones that appeal to sort of the younger demographic, but you don't want them mixed up with a professional MMA fighters community. So those two things just don't gel together. So at the content layer and use case layer level, you'll see communities that appeal to certain demographics, but they're all using the same underlying protocol and platform tools.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I've taken enough time, but I appreciate those were great responses. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, BTC Hornets, for that. If I could just change the pace a little bit, I hope we're still in a leaking mood. Word on the street is some of our ASTO Discovery Auction participants will be rewarded with a special collaboration. Is that something that we are allowed to talk more about?
Yeah. I think we already talked about this. It took me a while to pick up on what you were saying. I think we already talked about this on an AMA a little while ago around a special NFT for LBA participants. And I think that's going to be available soon. It's a collab between us and Fluff World. So if you participated in the LBA, you'll have access to a special ASTO scene that you can either keep standalone or add to your fluff or other scene capable assets later down the track.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for clearing that up, David, and welcome to the stage. The Plunger Queen herself, Chasing Tails, are you there? Well, she must be speechless after that alpha you just dropped there, David.
That's unusual.
I might be biased, but I do think that our scene is pretty much the coolest scene. So.
You're definitely biased, but also correct. Chasing Tails said you haven't invited me.
Now you have. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go.
Hey guys.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Good.
Hi.
I just wanted to, I can't believe no one else has asked this yet. Project Tempest.
What's that?
What's that? What's going on?
I don't know what that is. That sounds really interesting, though.
David, I've seen
super cool.
I've seen better acting from Joe Tribbiani in Days of Our Lives. All right, what aren't you telling us?
I don't know. I think immersive storytelling experiences are really awesome things to explore. And one of the really cool things about this space and this ecosystem is creating the opportunity for people to be inspired by the creativity in the community and start building their own projects around the worlds and the lore and the platform tools and the protocols that we're creating. And doing innovative things and finding innovative ways to tell stories. It's one of the things I'm most passionate about in this world is telling stories in immersive and innovative ways. And it's really awesome to see other people being inspired about what we're building and building new things themselves.
Cool. So are you saying that this is a community person's project, or is this part of something that you guys have instigated?
I have been involved in the evolution of this particular one, but it wasn't my idea. It wasn't my project, but I loved it so much that I got involved early on to help advise with it, and I'm really, really impressed with the progress, and really excited for where they take the platform and the stories and content.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me too.
One other question I had was Erin, was your talk in New York recorded, and will we get to see that?
Yes, it was recorded. We do have some audience footage of parts of it, but not the entire thing. And the quality in the audio wasn't ideal, but it was officially recorded by the conference. And so they'll be sending us that, and we'll be releasing it soon. And if we don't, for whatever reason, get that, or it takes too long, then we'll sort of try to optimize the audio that we have from the audience recordings, and we'll share that out.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Chasing Tales. We don't have anyone requesting to speak. Is there anything more that you guys wanted to touch on?
Sorry, I have one more question that someone just sent me.
Oh, yep, cool.
From the community. They want to ask Erin which game she's most excited about.
I see what you're doing, by the way.
I swear I got a DM.
I'm excited for the first game that will first non-AFA game that can be played in stadiums. The first of several. And we've said this multiple times that arenas are not just for AFA. And I have been lucky enough to get to be pretty involved in that particular project. And I'm extremely excited about that and to share that one out with the community soon.
Awesome. Wait.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Chasing Tales.
Thank you. Thanks, Chasing Tales. Oh, we do have someone else. Ty Bo. Oh, this man is the Fall Guys champion.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations, man. Sucks I missed out on that one. I really wanted to come along, but I'll definitely come to the next one.
I'm sure there's going to be another one. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I was wagering whether I should come up, but I decided why not? There's not much. There's still a little bit of time left. So when it comes to like developing games, it does require like some know-how. I'm curious to know, like, what kind of like talent and position you guys are in, and being involved with like other companies, or have you been hiring specific game devs? I guess I'm just curious on that side because I have a bunch of brothers that are game developers, and I know what it takes to make a game. And I know you guys are a new company, so I was just curious on that side of things. If there's any way you could go further into detail about that.
Yeah, really interesting question. The answer to that is both. We have both internal game capability, and we are also partnering with external studios around some use cases. We recognize that we are a platform, primarily a platform and protocol company, secondarily a content and game company. And our main focus is around the protocol and platform, but we do have internal capability with a full team of game development team, all the way from game design down to um, uh, engineers to technical artists to 3D modelers to scripting specialists, concept art, and I'm sure I'm missing some there, so I apologize to any of my staff that are missing if I've missed one of your roles. But the full stack of game development resource internally. But for big chunky stuff, AAA quality, large, massive worlds, expansive experiences, definitely something that we look to partner with people who are experienced in building those things. Across the ecosystem, there's much more capability. There are large teams with capability, and also where we look for opportunity to work close and build closer relationships with people who are experienced in building in that medium, and potentially in this space.
Yep. And along those lines, we are actively recruiting for many, many roles, but especially in games. So if your brothers want to maybe reach out, we're definitely growing quickly.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely let them know. They're on their own companies, so it's probably tied up. But yeah, may as well see if they can collab with you guys in the future, maybe. No, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to see what comes out in the next year or so in terms of announcements, because I just keep thinking of really cool ideas of what you can do with an AI brain, and I'm just excited to see it unfold. I guess is the million brains that you're conservatively estimating towards related to AFA only, or is that going to be a bunch of different games?
A bunch of different games. So you guys already know about the Muhammad Ali one, and then we've got collabs that we've announced, and other things in the pipeline that are coming up fast, that will require assets for as well. So super conservative, in my opinion, estimate of across what's going to be needed for these use cases. But bear in mind that brains are interoperable, so you don't need one for each, a different one for each game. But it takes into account the need for multiple brains per game, the need for that people might want to have more than one team, that they might want to have reserves for games that they switch out depending on the situation. So once you chuck all those numbers together, it's very easy to get to a conservative estimate of about 1 million.
Awesome. I had an idea with making, I guess, spliced brains. So when you say you go contribute 2 different brains together and you create a brain, but it ends up not being exactly how you want it to be. I had this idea is that if you, I guess, stake some ASTO into the process of creating the Gen 3 brain, the splice brain, and then it's not exactly how you want it, you could essentially burn it and get the ASTO back, and then purchase the brain again with a different brain to try and make the Gen 3 brain that you want. Is that something that you guys consider as an idea? Because if you do make a Gen 3 brain that isn't exactly how you want it to be, is that just done and dusted, or have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and I might incorporate that into our discussions around that mechanic. My thinking has been that we do that with items. So I think items are going to be really important across the ecosystem, and interruptible items. So they might have one effect in Aether and in ASM, but might have a different but similar effect in Fluff World or Crypto Walkers or whatever it might be. So this is one of the powerful things about the technology that we're developing with the NFTs, is that we can do really cool things like that, where items are interruptible between worlds. And I was thinking about meeting that challenge with an item that can be won in game and then traded on the secondary market.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I just had that thought of, like, because I want to breed brains, and I was just like, I wonder if I can reverse the process. Have they thought about this? Yeah, cool. No worries, guys. Thanks heaps. I love this AMA. Dropped a lot of juicy info, and I'm really excited to see where this all ends up.
All good. Thanks, man.
Tybo, thank you. Money GCC, welcome to the stage, mate. You're muted at the moment.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I apologize.
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear, bro.
Yeah, great. I guess good morning, guys. I have a question in relation to future games. Can we expect a golf game and a football game along the same lines as to how the Muhammad Ali game was achieved?
I can tell you that I haven't thought about a golf game. That's really interesting. Football game, I assume you mean American football?
No. I mean football. I mean proper football.
Proper football. So other than AFA, you mean?
Yeah, other than AFA, like a branded football game, sort of like you have a branded Muhammad Ali boxing game.
Yeah,
with a famous footballer or something.
Really interesting question. That's really cool question. And yeah, I might try and avoid answering that one, if that's okay.
That is perfectly fine. Sometimes no answer is a good answer.
Here's Money GCC. David, I'm perfectly okay with you leaking that, just putting that underneath us. But, your call in the end. What did you guys want to do in terms of guests? How are we for time?
Oh, no, continue to go. Yep.
All right, cool.
I'll make sure I don't have a meeting. 1 sec.
Love it.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Altered State, Julinho. Forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. But welcome to the stage. You're muted at the moment.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah.
Hey,
mate.
Unmute.
Good, thanks. Good.
Yeah, on the ASTO-Energy spending, maybe I've missed all the details, but I'm just a little interested in how you actually redeem ASTO-Energy for the brains, in that once the first production phase is finished and what seems to be a mining phase, which may also last 60 days after the production phase. How do you redeem your ASTO-Energy for the brains?
So there'll be an interface in the cortex that allows you to do that, but also gives you the option to play around with the mechanics of doing that through a gamification process. If you're not interested in that, you can just go and whack it down anywhere. But I assume most people are interested in playing around with those mechanics, and ways to bring in storytelling into protocol mechanics.
That sounds fun. Is that something that will happen over 60 days? Like it's a phase, or is it a sort of instant redeem spend kind of mechanic?
It'll happen during the epochs, and
Cool, yeah.
depending on your ASTO-Energy and some other variables, it'll take a certain amount of time to appear.
Okay. Cool. I'm sure there'll be more close to the time on that.
Yes. Yep.
It kind of leads to, we've announced we knew there would be other uses, and you've announced the all-star splicing is another use, and the stadiums, I guess, as well. But how will those overlay or interact in terms of timing, or how will that work in terms of deciding to spend your energy on those versus the brains? It's great to have so many options, but it creates a bit of anxiety about, okay, which is what and how much do I need by when, and can I get them given the production phases?
Yeah, and this is actually a bit of a comms challenge that's been interesting to navigate. Is people like options, but also it does present the challenge of choice anxiety as well. And the way to combat that is with powerful and effective communication around what those options are and what effects that they'll have. So we'll attempt to do that, as we always do, provide really good information to people interacting with it, and allow people to make their own choices, but make sure they're informed choices.
Awesome. Yeah, no, you've nailed it so fast. I trust in that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And a quick on the quantity, somebody's already asked, but just a real direct question: have you already reconsidered some of the quantities that you've announced for phase 2 and 3?
Yeah, they'll need to be closely monitored with the release of things and the demand. And we can always make proposals to the DAO to increase things if needed.
Awesome.
I think one thing that is fair to say in either scenario, depending on what type of mechanism we end up going with to propose to the DAO, in any scenario, it will be the holders of ASTO-Energy that will benefit from this adoption and demand that we know is coming. And that is an absolute that we can say for sure. The exact mechanism we are actively working on, and will present to the community and the DAO.
Cool. One more question on the sort of demos, activities, small use cases you've talked about getting out to share with us and keep us entertained and having fun. Those little fun use cases, are they? Oh, what was my question there? I've lost it. Sorry, but maybe it's just when. Wasn't it? But I don't know. But any more info on those?
Excuse me. Sorry about that. As for when, so I've had an idea that we can release some of the internal test stuff that doesn't connect to the protocol mechanics that haven't been released yet, like intelligence mining and the importation of custom assets for people to play around with. As long as the community is happy with playing with those things and knowing that those protocol mechanics are not connected, and those little sort of test prototypes, then that's really cool. My worry around that is if we release things like that and people go, "Oh, is that it? Is that what you've been developing all along?" That gets me a little bit worried about doing stuff like that. When it's just like, okay, that's just a little thing that you can play around with. It's not meant to be a big deal. I don't want it to be made into a big deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand the worry. I don't know if I'm sure you've thought about ways, but maybe it's a little gated thing. It's quite exclusive and not easily shared, or I don't know.
Yeah, so
excited for it when it can happen. Yeah.
So our thoughts on that is that that you have to be to gate it to people who are participants in genome mining or something like that. So they're really for the community to play around with, and make sure that we keep the scope sort of contained. The thing about these things as games like AFA are released and TNL are released, and the assets all have their smooth and highly curated animations and all these components that go into making these games are completed. Making these little demos becomes much easier, is that we can just bang things together relatively quick and add in the SDKs and modules that we're creating for AFA and other games, and build on top of those to create little experiences, and then also provide those tools to you guys to do the same. If you've got a little idea you want to test using AFA All Stars in a Unity environment with non-fungible intelligence, you can take those tools and assemble a little prototype and get people to play with it, and then perhaps get funding to create a real proper game out of that. So that's the stuff that really excites me.
That's cool. I just got totally distracted by the leak.
Has there been a leak? Is there?
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was thinking we might as well continue the alpha leakage day, so I sent a little something over to Suda to leak.
Oh, Erin, you're on fire today. Oh my god.
Best AMA ever. I like these office hours ones. All the time.
Yeah. Too many coffees.
I had a couple of basic when questions left on my list, just in terms of when will we get more details about the splicing of All Stars and even the All Star claim. I know everyone's always keen to know about that.
Yeah, so I think some of those items, some of those core items are on the roadmap and the transparency board at the moment. And we've just got to work through those, and then we'll have a better idea of release dates.
I would assume probably inside this production period for ASTO-Energy.
Yes, some of those mechanics will be coming out.
Awesome. And just one from the chat earlier, if somebody was asking to ask about All-Star Island. Is that the right name?
Yeah, what is that? I don't know.
AFA Island?
The all AFA Moon and the All-Star Island. Yes. Well, really interesting.
Maybe Josh should jump up on stage.
Maybe he should.
All good. Otherwise, that's all. Thanks.
All good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for those questions. And welcome to the stage, if you're still there, Brendan. Been waiting a while. this alpha keeps leaving people speechless. Brandon, welcome to the stage.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear, mate.
Sorry, I had my computer and my phone on. I realized that could cause some issues real quick having them both live. So wanted to put that down real quick. But I was excited to hear your guys' partnership with Crypto Walkers lately, and I'm loving hearing some of the new games that you guys are aligning to. And through Fluff Social and just chatting around a little bit, you're starting to hear some hesitancy from some of us original buyers or mentors, and just kind of maybe almost a recap on why or how the Gen 1 brains will continue to be a very good asset to have going forward, and maybe a little more detail on how, although the Gen 2s are an exciting next step and must do next step, how there will still be, I guess, what we should still be thinking of as the very exciting aspects of a Gen 1 brain, on top of the fact of some of the long-term pieces where you could see professional gamers could train them up, potentially sell them up, train them, or trade them over to people. Maybe what even in that more midterm, how some of the high-impact pieces of having a Gen 1 brain or being a holder.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit is that splicing, and I think there might be people that underestimate how big a play that's going to big a part that's going to take in the ecosystem and how assets are consumed. Because if you become good at training your brain for specific things, you can then create derivatives of that brain to sell to the market that are that can fill a position for people. So if you get your brain to just for AFA, forgetting all the other use cases, if you get your brain to be a really good striker, you can then sell pre-trained strikers that might fill out somebody's team who's specifically looking for something to take on that role, by using the splicing mechanic, and sell those at a premium to the market. Genesis brains are definitely for power users. They're for people who understand the protocol and want to interact with it at that level. And they provide a way to supply premium assets to the market, that you've put some effort and work into, and it's the only way to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I apologize if you had also brought it up earlier on this call. I had to show up a little bit late. So I wanted to just kind of follow up on that so that I'm making sure that when I'm talking to people as well, I'm kind of up to speed on the correct information to talk about, because this is definitely something I talk about frequently since mint date. I've been a huge fan of what this can be for the industry, and really the gold standard of how to move forward in this industry with providing AI, and especially in a lot of ways the non-playable character aspect of the liveliness of the metaverse. So I just always like to, if I'm feeling like I'm hearing certain comments, just kind of get myself up to speed, ask a couple questions so that I can make sure I'm passing the right information on.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, honestly. And I must say, like, our community is definitely the best in the business about giving access to information and sharing information with people seeking it. The amount of times I come on to the Discord and I see questions pop up, and while I'm typing them to answer them, 2 or 3 community members have answered it better than I possibly could have, which is so awesome. So I just want to say thank you to all you guys and everybody who's on the Discord answering these questions and giving information out to people seeking it. I really, really appreciate it, and it's what makes this community so awesome.
Absolutely. And I the one other thing is a wild card thought, but any potential of possibly even Genesis brain holders being able to stake their brain or get some kind of like bonus multiplier on ASTO-Energy over time by being a Genesis brain holder?
So items and boosts is a really interesting concept that we're working through at the moment. You've been able to use assets to provide multipliers and special abilities and things to protocol mechanics. It's a really interesting space to explore. The math on that can be quite complicated because once you start providing things like that, you've got to account for the additional supply and the level of participation. But we're actually looking for sort of any kind of occasion to apply those really interesting mechanics that we can.
Yeah, I was thinking at first stake, just like, oh, you could, if there was potentially even stake my brain, I would do it, the Genesis brain. But then I was thinking, oh, maybe it's easier if it was a multiplier. But either way, it's purely greedy me just thinking, oh, what else could I do with this original brain while we're building? But thanks a lot for your guys' time. It's always you're always super helpful on the calls. And I appreciate you guys always hosting these calls for us to kind of catch up and ask some more questions.
Awesome. Thank you for the questions. Are you there?
Hi, I am. Thanks for having me.
Oh, sorry. Isaac, you're on mute.
No worries. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Dr. Denzel, welcome to the stage, mate.
Cheers. Two quick questions off the task board, please. One is in the in progress column. Rebuild baseline AFA model to allow training for a new internal AFA game version. Was this just refinement that came out of internal testing, and what were the quirks that needed to be ironed out?
Yeah, I believe that one was. Researching and developing this space is unbelievably interesting, and trying to find all the sort of the quirks and discovering some of the interesting things that neural networks do under certain conditions is a really, really fascinating problem space. And when we find those, we have to go and solve that problem, so that you guys don't experience it in the use cases. This is a challenge to anybody who's developing in this space, and having such a talented team who loves these challenges, and having the lead up and the fact that we've been developing this for quite some time now definitely gives us an advantage in the market to releasing these kinds of experiences. So that particular one, I think, was around a little it might have been around a little a quirk that we found in the entropy of training that produced some interesting results. The team dubbed as brain damage, I believe, through that happened occasionally through training. And identifying, troubleshooting, and resolving that issue was a pretty interesting challenge to follow.
Got it. Well, that's great. And look, good QA, good testing is worth its weight in platinum. So happy for you all that you're able to iron these things out before going out there. And then finally, just in the done column, the game logic cinematic. Did I miss? Did we any thoughts on when that's going to get shared, or did I miss it? Or
I don't think that's out yet. Erin, do we have a date for that one set yet?
We do not have a date for that one set, but it is nearing the end of production, so we should be seeing that fairly soon.
Should that have been still in testing?
The
Maybe
trailer. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Noted. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Denzel. And just welcoming to the stage, AC Bubbles. How's it going, mate?
Hey, I'm not on mute, am I?
No, you're all good.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm purely asking not for my own benefit, even though I own a Prime, but I know PJ was itching for some kind of conversation about Primes. So I figured I'd come to the stage and try to facilitate any information that's possible, given the fact that we did discuss some of the potential for the masses of all-stars that are needed. And I know that there is a somewhat formal, but not really formal confirmation that the primes are related to that. So just wondering if anyone's feeling like talking about that. If not, you can totally tell me to kick sand, kick rocks.
So that's primes related to splicing. Did you say? Sorry, I missed a portion of that.
Yeah, pretty much. Is there any new information that you'd like to discuss about primes? And if not, it's okay. Just we always ask every couple of AMAs, and I know that you said that without things confirmed, you don't really want to talk about it, but
yeah.
Anything that is.
I actually want to talk about one of the challenges of designing these mechanics that might give you guys some interesting insight to how decisions are made and what sort of things we need to go through to make decisions. One of the things we have to really be careful when we look at yield on assets is that they're not technically, we have to go through legal opinions to make sure they're not technically securities and stuff like that. So designing mechanics can be an exhaustive process sometimes when you've got to go through these kinds of things, because if we don't, then we expose our community to those risks. So we have to take into consideration things like that, which is fun. Excuse me. I don't know if that doesn't answer your question, but I just thought it was an appropriate time to maybe give you guys some insight into the process behind some of the stuff. It's not just engineering or design challenges. It's sometimes legal challenges that we have to be really careful around. And some of these mechanics we've considered for primes have required us to look into that specifically.
No, that's totally okay. Sometimes insight like that on what you guys deal with, especially in decision making, is definitely as cool as alpha to me. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I try and give you guys some, as much insight into what's going on as possible. And sometimes, things get held up in those sorts of processes, which really sucks, because I wish I could tell you everything that I'm thinking in any one moment. But but yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Prime alpha is soon. TM. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Bubbles, and Dave, thanks for that little extra insight. I'm sure it's much appreciated. We have two more guests. Welcome to the stage, NFT Sales.
LV50. What's up, man?
Hello. I was muted. Hey guys and girls, how are you?
Yeah, good to hear you. You haven't been up for
Excellent.
a while.
I haven't. There's been so many great questions, but I think I might have found a couple that haven't been asked, which I'm surprised about, because they usually get asked to every single AMA, which is when thinking alpha, because if I recall correctly, about 8 weeks ago or so, you were hoping that you might have been able to leak something on an upcoming 11th Hour podcast, which didn't eventuate. Now, what kind of time frame are we talking? Where is all that at in regards to the thingies?
It's a classic for sure. I like bringing back the
probably
classics.
hate answering it.
Well, the thing is, I can't answer that because it's up to Alex and Jesse. And
they throw it back on you, just so you know.
They do. Those lovely gentlemen. Okay, right. I'm going to make a concerted effort this week to get a definitive answer on that. I know there's been a lot of stuff in the pipeline and some discussions around timing of some of these releases, but I'll make a concerted effort to chase up on that this week.
Excellent. You will be the hero of the Fluff Discord if you do that. two other really quick questions. I may have missed it. I've been listening the whole time, but brain training, will that in gyms, will that consist of using ASTO or ASTO-Energy or a mix of both?
ASTO, yeah. Brain training will consume ASTO.
Perfect. And really interesting topic that you brought up earlier, which was onboarding the masses and how do you do that? And it's not currently not viable to currently do it under the current infrastructure and onboarding process and user interface and experience. So when that time does come and we do need to onboard the masses to be purchasing brains and all stars and all the different assets in the community, it's obviously going to look very different to what it does now. Would that incorporate a scenario where the person doesn't actually know they're using crypto to buy the assets? And would that obviously include like a fiat to crypto on-off ramp where people come with fiat to buy the asset, but actually all the transactions are happening in the background automatically? Is that the kind of experience that you want to get to?
Yeah, essentially. I see there are two different types of users. There's the power users like you guys, who do the research, get involved in the projects, read the white papers, understand what's going on, and you guys are familiar with the technologies and how to use them and how to and how things work, and you guys have access to things like Genesis assets that have these slightly complicated mechanics that the majority of the market won't work with, but you get a benefit from having those because you've done the research and you understand how it works. That community will still and always exist, in my opinion, and we will provide tools to the power users that enable you to interact with the protocol mechanics and provide things like assets to the mass market through genome mining. But then you've got the other side, which is the hundreds of millions or billions of people who won't be power users and won't care about or necessarily need to know about the underlying technology. So I don't want them using terms. I don't think we will see them using terms like NFT or crypto. They'll just be interacting with the abstractions and the functionality that those technologies enable. So that's how you get mass market adoption.
From a real CFI user interface where actually, if you're a bank, for example, that uses the underlying technology of Ripple, the customer doesn't actually know that they're using that technology. It's just, you're just banking. And they'll just be playing games opposed to interacting with crypto and NFTs.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to that time because bridging that gap is so important. And I'm glad that you guys are moving towards that and solving that to really onboard literally the masses. So well done. Love it. Thank you very much for the AMAs and all the effort you guys put in to educate the community and all the information you provide us.
Awesome. Thank you for the questions. And I think just one more note on that. I think it also provides us with an opportunity to gamify the education around these technologies for the people who are interested and provide access to understanding and onboarding into decentralization through a sort of soft on-ramp where they interact with in a way that's familiar, and over time they become more aware about things like data privacy and self-sovereignty and having access to powerful things that you can do by owning a wallet and transacting in decentralized networks. And it gives us that opportunity to do that if we create soft on-ramps for users.
Absolutely. And when you are speaking to traditional companies that are not Web3 natives, whether it might be a large sporting organization or a brand like Muhammad Ali brand, do they want to get into the weeds on the technical NFT Web3 side, or are they just more interested in how you're solving for the onboarding of their community? Where is their focus?
Depends on who you talk to. ABG, for example, are super smart and clued up on this space and really interested in what we build. We even had like Sierra from ABG come to South by Southwest and jump on a panel with me to talk to the community about this. So they're extremely involved in what we're doing. So ABG's the people who are custodians of the Muhammad Ali brand. And they're really involved, really knowledgeable, support the Web3 community, and also are interested in how we plan to onboard beyond crypto native communities. Others are just how can we onboard our existing non-crypto native communities, and others are how do we tap into the crypto native community. Our brand or product is underserving that community at the moment. How do we begin to create a bridge to them?
Great, excellent. Oh, you say solving for both issues, so fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for the questions.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
All right.
Thanks.
All right,
Yeah,
Zap, last one, I reckon.
Lucky last, mate. Welcome to the stage.
Oh, hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hey, to be honest, I forgot that I requested, and I was just kind of listening in the background. But I'll make some stuff up on the fly here. So super cool about the scene that you guys just dropped in the leaks, and so I'm kind of curious about that. It looks like it is sort of in a back alley. It's got like maybe like Neon City vibes, but then there's a bunch of like lightning and electricity, and then there's like a portal that emerges. And I was curious if you can comment on the portal. Is that something to Fluff World or something else, or just kind of curious?
I think that what you might be seeing is a bit of ASTO-Energy, and you might be noticing a theme across a lot of what we're doing right now with genome mining and what Dr. Jenny Bryan is researching. That ASTO-Energy is extremely powerful. It has a lot of use cases across.
It popped up in weird places.
Pops up, yeah.
Say more.
I think that's about as much as we can say about that.
Nice try, Zeptat.
Yeah, all right, worth of effort. And then talking earlier, I'm just kind of curious. I think it was a good conversation, just talking about how you onboard lots of different users, especially if the goal is to have millions of players within a game or the ecosystem. But for me, at least personally, onboarding my friends that have experience to crypto has been quite easy. Onboarding my friends that have no experience to crypto has been quite a challenge. And so I'm wondering if you guys are sort of the expectation long term is to be able to play, whether it's AFA or other games, without actually owning or having like a MetaMask or a Coinbase wallet or something like that, so that it's almost like seamless. I mean, just in terms of gaming, like what you see now is a lot of the biggest games in the world are all kind of this free to play sort of model. And I'm just wondering if that is something that you guys are thinking about.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot more information in the Futureverse white paper around some of the ecosystem level plans for onboarding journeys and how the technology works. But I think there's some merit in creating the opportunity for people to choose to take custody of their assets and have that sort of soft entry point where they can get involved, learn about the benefits of having custody of an asset, and then start to interact with the mechanics behind that, and it gives us an education opportunity in between that. So there's some layered approaches that we can take to mass market adoption that allows us to educate and provide people with the option to understand and interact with decentralization.
Okay, so just to kind of restate that, I mean, more so what you're thinking is really positioning yourself as like an education leader in the space and onboarding people into kind of crypto, into the education of machine learning, and trying to really just make it as user friendly as possible. And the carrot is really the kind of the fun and exciting games within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a bold statement, and I don't usually make these. But if you've got a project in your space and you're not taking that opinion as it's your responsibility to educate and build access for mass market adoption, and let your users know about what you're building, then you're not going to make it.
I think that's a good mindset. And, I think, David, we talked about this briefly before, but I think it's really cool because you do have the opportunity to onboard so many people just in their education of machine learning and how it works. And, gaming is obviously a great way to do that because it can be a fun way and people sort of learn by default.
Yeah.
So yeah, last quick question. So my background, I used to be very heavily involved in gaming and esports, and I think also we've talked about this a little bit. But just in terms of, how easy is it for someone to, play and kind of navigate a game like AFA versus someone that's really into it, reading strategy guides and sort of talking with people to kind of come up with these, perfect optimizations. Like, do you envision it being like a esports level type of optimization in terms of the training required, or do you think it will be more basic than that with more luck involved, or is it going to be like almost like the esports of machine learning?
Yeah. One thing I can say for sure, and that's definitely something I would love to see. But one thing I can say for sure, if you set out to build an esports game, you're going to fail. The most popular esports games in the world have all been, completely unpredictable. The fact that some mod for Warcraft Frozen Throne became the most popular genre of esports in the world was completely unpredictable. You've seen a lot of massive game studios saying we're creating an esports game, and I think the only mildly successful one has been Overwatch, really, as creating an esports. I mean, things like Fortnite came out of nowhere, and it wasn't even the game that they originally designed. So I think if you set out to create the next big esports game, you're probably not going to succeed. What we want to do is build in enough complexity, layers of complexity that people can choose to dive into, to create a level of engagement that people can choose to participate at. And if you want to be a super advanced power user of it and participate in high stakes, high reward tournaments, you can choose to do that. But if you just want to be a casual gamer and not really get involved in how machine learning works, then you can also do that. I think that's the goal and how we're designing it.
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. And I'm just envisioning it almost being like having ranking leaderboards where you have like top players of the week or the month, and then being able to kind of study what they've been doing, or even, if you have like the Plunger Gang or the Bomba Squad and their factions kind of have their own sort of internal tournaments where you have like little mini competitions to kind of incentivize those any like individual micro economies. This would be super fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think its layers are important, and making every entry point fun.
Well, cool, guys. Thanks for the questions. Honestly, awesome AMA, and hope you guys can do more like this. This was super awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Erin. Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, Isaac.
Thanks,
Yep.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about wraps things up for this AMA. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Dave and Erin, for your insights and scratching that alpha itch. I'm sure it's much appreciated.
Awesome, and thank you, Isaac, for being a wonderful host. Really appreciate it. And to everybody else, as per usual, we'll be around in the Discord. If you've got any questions, let me know. If I miss anything, tag my name, and the team usually gets it to me if I'm busy. And I'll see you guys around.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.